Hello and welcome back to Mood India, California Arts Association's presentation of performing arts from India. I'm your host, Arvind Kansal. Continuing our series on Indian musical instruments, today we bring you the first part of a two-part series on violin. It is an instrument used very widely in Carnatic and Hindustani styles of Indian classical music. In the studio we have two well-known artists from Bay Area, Susheela Narasimhan and Ramesh Srinivasan. Susheela will be playing the violin and Ramesh will be accompanying him on Mridangam. Susheela has learned violin from first Sri H.K. Venkataram, a disciple of Sri Lalgudi Jayaraman. Subsequently, he learned violin from Sri H.K. Narasimhamurthy in the musical lineage of Sri Parur M.S. Gopalakrishnan. Having learned Mridangam from several teachers, Ramesh is considered among the senior students of Sangeet Kalanidhi Vellur G. Ramabhadra. Welcome. So, Susheela, can you introduce us to violin and give us some idea about its origins and its place in Indian classical music?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I would like to thank you for welcoming me here, for bringing me here. Violin itself, takes a very prominent role in Indian classical music. First of all, the way it started is that in the beginning of if you look at the Puranas or even the sculptures that you can see in the temples in Tamil Nadu, for example, you will see that there are references to stringed instruments, like in some of the old Puranas and even Tamil scriptures like Silaparikaram. You can see that there are references to stringed instruments like Yal, and there are also references to on the southern side, and also there are references to like Ektar and Dotar on the North Indian side. Right. So this is how violin was like references to stringed instruments with pecks and instruments were there in the Indian part of the world. But at the same time, you used to have lot of experimentations were going on the European side, where people like Beethoven or Tchaikovsky, they had their own compositions, and as time went on, like stringed instruments like violin in different forms started entering into basically into main concerts and things like that. So violin actually has gone through various transformations, meaning from the different sizes of like the cello or viola.
Right.
So people have tried different pieces of wood or different shapes of the part, and finally even many German violin maker, for example Stradivarius, if you go to a violin store today you'll see the violin is named after like a copy of a Stradivarius. So that's how finally the violin in its final form that you can see today has gone through many transformations through many ages. But so when during the 18th century, when after violin took its final form from the European and the Italian side,
right,
basically we had the king in Kerala called Swati Tirunal. Basically it was in his, according to scriptures, it was in his kingdom that first violin took preliminary introduction into Carnatic music.
I see.
Basically there were people like Vadivelu and also Baluswami Dikshitar who started introducing violin into Indian classical music, and predominantly South Indian music at that point. And so that's when violin took the preliminary introduction into South Indian music.
And that's, since then it has become an integral part of Carnatic music.
Yeah, it has become pretty much, I wouldn't say an integral part, even like everyday role. It plays everyday role in every concert that you go.
I see.
Yeah, in Carnatic music.
Both as a solo instrument as well as for
both as a solo
accompanying.
instrument, and people play duets, and you also have things where like whether it's a flute concert or a vocal concert, there will be a violin predominantly there.
I see.
Yeah, prominently playing the accompanying role, or a solo role if there's a solo concert. The main reason why violin has penetrated so much into Carnatic music is because of the fact that, you know, if you take like a mandolin or a guitar or other instruments, or even the flute, for example, the notes are more discrete, meaning there's no continuity of the note. Even though you can get continuity through vibrations and stuff, but the bow being a continuous part really helps in getting a continuous note, and that really helps in bringing out the real bhava of the vocal. Like basically you can take a vocalist, whatever he or she is singing, you can try to bring out the exact whatever he's singing.
The expressions.
The expressions of the bhava very clearly. Yeah, that's why violin has penetrated so much into, because of the continuity of the notes, and also the tonic representations.
So, if you could introduce our viewers to some of the basic playing techniques.
You know, if you look at the basic style, actually, if you look at the violin, if you go to a store and see the violin, actually, I've taken out this particular piece, but there is a particular part here called a chin rest. And normally, there are two different playing techniques, or the basic ways of playing violin. And if you go to a Western violin player, he'll probably hold it like this, with the chin resting on the chin rest. And most of the time, in the Western way of playing the instrument, you know, the notes are most, basically you play the violin in such a way that the fingers don't move a whole lot. They do move along the fingerboard completely, but there are no combinations of notes to get the expression like what we do in Carnatic music or even the Hindustani music, or to sum it up, Indian classical music.
I see.
So what happens is basically, because of the various forms and various combinations of notes that you have to do, and that's called as gamaka, for example, the combinations of notes to get the exact expression of the vocalist, it's called as the bhava. And it's that particular thing that makes it complicated for a person playing Indian classical music on violin to stand and play. You don't really get a correct support to move your fingers. So the violin has to be more, you know, like it has to be supported correctly, and you need full flexibility for your fingers to move, like basically three-dimensional movement of the fingers.
So that is why you anchor it on your
foot. Yeah.
I see.
That's why I'm sitting and playing rather than standing and playing.
I see.
So those are some.
This is some critical difference.
Yeah, critical difference between like Western part of the world and the Indian classical music.
Now, violin has seen a lot of usage and playing styles both in Carnatic style of music as well as Hindustani style of music, which are the two major parts of Indian classical music. I know you're familiar with both of them, and so could you give our viewers some description and maybe play some pieces to show differences there?
Yeah. Basically, if you look at the Hindustani style, for example, I had the opportunity to learn under one of MS Gopalakrishna's students, H.K. Narasimhan, and incidentally, MS Gopalakrishnan is one of the people who has improvised both on Carnatic style and Hindustani styles. And so, if you take a particular Hindustani concert, for example, you will have the person who is either playing or singing the vocal, for example. You'll have a deeper alapana. The raga is elaborated on the raga alap, as to what you call as, is elaborated very deeply, meaning you can have almost an hour of the raga alapana followed by jod and jala and stuff.
I see.
But if you take a Carnatic part, for example, you'll have many discrete compositions, but the raga alapana itself, it's more, probably will be at the most like 10 to 15 minutes. Even that's too much actually. So then that will followed by a piece that's rendered and followed by improvisations to the main composition.
Nice.
And I would tend to say that, in my opinion, that a Hindustani raga is probably played a little bit more slowly than Carnatic way of rendering the raga.
Okay.
What I'd like to do is I'd like to just play one raga and show how slowly it's played. I might not come close to a Hindustani kind of playing, but I'll elaborate that and also show how the same raga it's kind of played in the Carnatic style. And I would like to follow with another piece as to the different ways of playing Hindustani and Carnatic styles.
That will be great.
The first one, the raga that I want to take is called as, it's called as Puriya Dhanashri in Hindustani music.
Okay.
And it's called as Pantuvrali in Carnatic music.
Yes.
So, based on those, I would like to just elaborate first just a 30-second thing of how it really sounds in a Hindustani way. And the raga scale goes basically as So this is how, slowly how a Hindustani style would go. But if you take the same thing in a Carnatic style, for example, the person starting the raga would be a little bit more, it will be slightly more faster tempo, I would say. I would just like to elaborate that. And
Beautiful.
This is some preliminary introduction as to how it would vary between Hindustani way of
Two different styles of playing it, right?
And I'd just like to take some small little time to just elaborate. If you take a piece, for example, how a Hindustani tarana would sound. I would like to take the example of a malkaunts, for example, in Hindustani, as it's called as Hindola in Carnatic music, for example. So a Hindustani tarana, for example, I'd just like to play one small piece.
Please.
Hindustani Taran would look like approximately. But if you take like a kriti like Neerajakshi Kamakshi in Rupakatara in Carnatic music, I just like to play one line so that you can see the difference. This is a played composition as well as the raga.
I see.
To show you a clear difference as to how it would sound.
Between the two, it's a very good contrast.
Yeah.
Thank you. In terms of tuning, since violin is an instrument used very widely both in Western as well as in the Indian classical, what do you feel are the tuning differences between the two?
Well, if you take a Western tuning style, for example, again, if you count the 4 strings as like, like 1, 2, 3 and 4 coming from the left hand side, basically the Western style of tuning will be like, like G, D, A and E starting from the left hand side. So they have a predominant set way of tuning it to the, every violinist, Western violin will be tuned like that, like G, D, A and E. But what happens on the Carnatic front, or the Indian music, the Carnatic front at least, will be, we have different octaves basically, like the C of the Western music, we call it as like pitch level number 1. And so we go from like C, D, E, F, G, A. So those correspond to like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pitches. For example, today we are playing at level G, which is also called as level 5 in Carnatic music. So those are some predominant differences between.
And so there's a lot more leeway also to whom you're accompanying with, if you're accompanying with on a violin.
And most of the time, referring to like the Indian classical music, normally when vocalists sing, a male vocalist, normally his tuning pitch will be somewhere between a C and a D, meaning like 1 or level 2 pitches. Whereas if a female singer is singing, it will be more like E or F. Probably F to A, meaning like between 4, 5 and 6, E, F or A. So we have the liberty to tune it either way, but whereas in the Western style, you have to stick to G, D, A, and E. So that's the predominant difference between the tuning.
I see. Violin is again in Indian classical music associated very strongly with folk dances and also Indian classical dances. So how is it that it has come to have this strong association?
Well, as you see, Indian classical music is based predominantly on Indian classical music itself. So if you take either the North Indian styles of like Odissi and Kathak as compared to the South Indian styles of like Bharatanatyam or Kuchipudi or Kathakali, for example, from the state of Kerala, each of them are based on their own musical styles. For example, if you take the Kathakali music or the Bharatanatyam, they have a sole base of Carnatic music as their base.
I see.
So because of that, and violin being predominantly adapted to Carnatic music a lot, found its penetration into music also.
I see.
And so I can go to any Bharatanatyam concert, or we have violinists playing two, like Bharatanatyam performances or Kathakali performances, and even for Kathakali music itself. So it has entered as a predominant part because of the nature that it's based on the classical music itself.
So it has come from the association of the music into those dance forms.
Exactly. Yeah.
I see.
And because of that also, one thing I would like to point out is that because of violin being a more predominant accompanying instrument in the South Indian style, it has penetrated the South Indian dance more than what it has done for the North Indian part of the music.
I see.
North Indian dances, for example. But again, it's left to a particular individual to, I'm not saying that it should not be adapted for North Indian dance at all. It's just left to one particular individual to take it and adapt it. And once it finds its roots, I think it can be, because I'm sure they use sarangi, for example, for the Kathak performances or Odissi performances. theoretically, in terms of like the sound-wise and performance-wise, the sarangi is played a reverse violin, for example. The continuity of the notes is the same in both sarangi and violin. So I would find it hard that violin cannot be used for a Kathak concert. It could be.
Okay.
It's left to a person to use it, and once it finds its, like for example in Swati Tirunal's kingdom, somebody started using violin for Carnatic music and it found its roots. So I'm sure that it can be used.
I see.
Yeah.
What piece would you like to play for our viewers today?
I guess I already played my preliminary piece.
Right.
I'd like to play a piece in Raga Garuda Dvani, and it's set to beats of 8 cycles.
Okay.
A cycle of 8 beats, which goes like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And it's basically in Raga Garuda Dvani, it's called Devi Kamalalaye. And I would like to play this Kritis because of the fact that it was composed by Mysore Vasudevachar, and it's in my hometown, so I would like to play that particular Kriti. So.
first part of our two-part series on violin. Thank you for joining us. Mood India's programs on Indian performing arts is brought to you by California Arts Association. We hope to see you again. We also welcome your feedback and comments. And until next time,